Hello, just want to have a look at the number 108 again. Now, I've done it in a longer form videos going back a bit, but in response to a particular question that I got dropped in a comment, and it would relate to this. So this number 108, I'm just going to be going through the Eastern traditions, specifically Hindus, Jains, also what's important in Sikhs, but Buddhists as well. But you will find this across the world. Literally across the world, both modern and ancient times, embedded in myth and architecture, especially through measurement. So this is by no means a purely Eastern phenomenon, but just for the moment, we'll just look at those. So beginning with Hindu, so we have Vishnu, who has 108 symbols, 108 mantras. Usually, like when they say their prayers, it will be repeated 108 times. But also his Sudarshana chakra, this weapon, I suppose, but it has 108 serrations. You can even see it in these statues. In the Vedic tradition, 108 Upanishads. Also, by some descriptions, I would say by some, Sanskrit has 54 letters, 54 male, 54 female. So by some descriptions, there would be 108 letters in Sanskrit. 108 beads on the Japamala. This is for Hindus, Jains, Buddhists as well. This is, for instance, in Bali, very big on Hinduism there, and 108 units of holy water and 145 units of 108 to 4. That's a 5 to 12 ratio, which would be a 5, 12, 13 triangle if you were to apply it geometrically. But we see again this in ancient sites as well. 108 sun salutations at the spring equinox in yoga. And 108 chakras or pressure points for instance. Now, before I go, okay, let's pause a moment.
Yoga is essentially understanding, aligning your system with the cosmic geometry. See, in the yogic system, we see the body as 114 chakras, 72,000 nadis meeting in 114 junctions, which are called as chakras. Out of these, 2 are outside your body, 112 inside the body. Of this 112, there are 4 about which you don't have to do anything. They are like that. If other things work, they will flower by themselves. So there are only 108 with which you can work. So 108 has become significant. If you wear any beads, people wear 108 beads. If they say a mantra, 108, because these are the 108 chakras that you need to work with. This 108 number is significant, and you will see it in the East. Everything is 108 because the diameter of the sun and the distance between the earth and the sun is 108 times. The diameter of the moon and the distance between the moon and the earth is 108 times. The diameter of the earth and the diameter of the sun is 108 times. And in this body, there are 108 chakras that you can work upon. So the cosmic geometry, I can go into a lot of arithmetic which will match with your human system.
And what about 108?
108, that is the total, 1, 8 to total 9.
Yeah, so the 1 and the 8 comes 9.
Yeah, 9, the 9 planet, that is important.
Yeah.
Even in the worship purpose to use the Sanskrit song, 108.
Here, there are 108 temples here, is that right?
108 Shiva temple, Vishnu temple.
108 Vishnu
temple, 1008 Shiva temple.
1008 Shiva temples.
Okay, as was just mentioned in that clip, the diameter of the moon, which happens to be 108,000 long feet, the diameter of the moon times 108 is the distance from the moon to the earth. The diameter of the sun times 108 is the distance from the sun to the earth, and also, depending, because it's measuring the sun's a bit of a tricky one, exactly where is the surface, but within very, well above 99%. The diameter of the earth times 108 is the diameter of the sun, but it's also worth noting the diameter of the sun times 1080 is the distance from the sun to Saturn, 108,000 kilometers, give or take. Again, it's a gaseous body, exactly finding the definition, but again, well above 99%, 108,000 kilometers, the polar diameter of Saturn, which is effectively the speed of the Earth per hour as it orbits the Sun. In Tantric systems, they believe that there are 21,600 breaths per 24 hours. That's 10,800 breaths per day and 10,800 breaths per night. The circumference of the Earth at the equator to 21,600 nautical miles. So that's per day. On the day side, 10,800 nautical miles, 10,800 nautical miles on the night side, which is a nice conjunction as well. Now, throughout especially the Hindu tradition, what we have is 108 sacred temples. So you'll find that temples are clustered in groups of 108. But also, and this is a common feature across the ancient world, but 108 feet wide. And so the foot, modern English foot, as we're told, is apparently, from the time of Queen Elizabeth I. Well, that's just not true, because we can find literal evidence of it, such as the Salama stone going back at least to 500 BC. For instance, in the Parthenon and the Salama stone, that was during that time, the Greeks were there was a movement to make Greek society Buddhist, which is not a very well-known fact, but also in places such as the Kushan Empire, where you have Greco-Buddhist architecture happening, this exchange from the east to the west. So 108 feet is the standard. Now, Sun Temple in India, Madeira Sun Temple, there are 108 small shrines in the pool. This number is of vital importance to them. And Rankhof-Vihara, 108 feet high by coincidence now, in Prambanan in Indonesia. Now, this one must specify that when it was uncovered, these temples, towers were rebuilt. So they're 66 feet wide, which is another measurement, which is apparently, again, Queen Elizabeth I and Edmund Gunter, but you find it across the ancient world. But the central tower is 153 feet, or 154. The two smaller ones on either side are 108, but they were rebuilt. However, given that the fact that these other sites feature 108, I think that's good evidence that's probably, that they rebuilt it to the proper dimensions. The largest lingam in the world, here in India, 108 feet high. They're still doing it. This is an ancient tradition that's been passed on. And all these large new statues, 108 feet high, 108 feet high. There's another one under construction as well, 108 feet high. And 108 feet high, why are they choosing this? This is the largest stone statue in the world, carved from, again, a single piece of stone. This was part of but the statue itself is 108 feet high, 121 feet if you include the base that it stands on, and that's a perfect conversion to this ancient unit of measure, the Mohenjo-Daro foot, which just happens to be the Saxon foot, which was in use up until the time of Queen Elizabeth. The largest stupa in Europe, 108 feet high, 82 feet wide, which is 27.33 yards, another very, very sun, earth and moon number. The stupa here in Colorado, 108 feet high. You don't go to IKEA and just get these off the shelf. These are designed and built to specific dimensions. All the traditions and the people who are still making both Hindu and Buddhist temples talk openly about this. This is not a secret. It's not random either. And so also consider in Chinese tradition. So first emperor of China, famous for the terracotta warriors, he brought in a set of I don't want that. Okay, he brought in a set of standard weights and measures, architectural techniques as well into China. And now I can't get the exact date of when this appeared, but there is a saying which goes back quite some time at least. One must walk 10,800 li to reach wisdom. Now again, what exactly is 1 li? Well, that was a unit brought in during the first emperor, which is nicely ties into 1890 feet. That's 7/8 of 2,160, but that's Journey to the West, Sun Wukong, this very famous story. Legend is, well, Sun Wukong, the Monkey King, he could somersault li, again, this unit of measure, 108,000 li in a single somersault and make 72 transformations. 72, 108, these are just standards across all these cultures, ancient architecture as well. Chinese literature, they still like 108 stars of destiny, 36 heavenly spirits, 72 earthly fiends. 72 co-conspirators with Set to kill Osiris. This type of stuff. 108 imprisoned demonic warlords. But you'll find it in Shaolin as well, the number of movements and postures. 81, so, okay, but 108. Buddha asked 108 questions, he made 108 statements. Reclining Buddhas, when they do a Buddha statue, they'll show his feet, and there'll be 108 symbols on each of his feet. This is a standard. For instance, Wat Pho, again another example of 108 auspicious symbols on each foot, and 108 offering bowls through the temple. So where it's statues, symbols, bowls. In China, this stupa, 108 smaller stupas is there as well. 108 gates, 108 chapels at this. This is Tibetan Buddhism as well. 9 levels by 12 zodiac signs. So 9 times 12 is 108. And also the young Buddhist monks always working 108. So not just the japa, not just the beads, but 108 ritual prostrations before they go into bed. And that's important because especially when they open a new temple, such as this recent one in Myanmar, former Burma, it's 324 feet high, which is 108 yards. Again, it's another, the foot, the yard, well, all the numbers are there. But there's a 108 foot high flagstaff and a garden of 108 bow trees, and there's processions of 108 monks. This reclining Buddha doesn't have the symbols on the foot, but it's 108 feet long. Why are they not using? Well, because actually the ancient Eastern measures directly translate to all sorts of allegedly modern measures as well. It's just it's a set of beliefs that they must be separated, but they're all at the conversion rates are just fundamentally harmonious. They always come back to the same lovely proportions that most Westerners would connect to Pythagorean schools or Pythagorean mysticism. Well, no, it actually extends well beyond. Another example in Korea, 108 foot high. Angkor Wat. So what you have on each of the bridges is 54 statues on either side. So each bridge has 108 statues. There's also that famous churning of the Milky Sea. You know, just divas, and 54 on one side, 54 on the other, so 108 again. And part of this larger complex around Angkor is this Phnom Penh. There were originally 108 smaller towers around the base. Now they've mostly collapsed. You can still see the footprints of it, so that's how I know. But there are 104 of these smaller towers. So from ground level, only 33 are visible at one time. 33 gods on Mount Meru, which brings us back to. I pointed that one out because this is a 1996. They built this temple to house this jade Buddha. It's 108 feet high, and the building is divided into 33 levels. So, levels of carpentry, I suppose, and and paint and ornamentation. Again, this 108 and 33. So that's Eastern. But what you will do is you'll find these same numbers and measures in Europe, for instance. Moscow, Crystal Palace. This was the historic home of the royal family of the Netherlands, Luxembourg. This monument in Germany, like literally there's no shortage of it. Now, ancient stone circles. So, for instance, Stonehenge is 108 feet, the Sassenring, but you'll find all these other circles where 108 features. 100, now it's also important. So Buddhism, Hindu, Jain, Sikhs, but also in Islamic architecture, both old and new. So Taj Mahal, 108 feet high arch. The minaret in the Grand Paris Mosque, 108 feet. Samara Mosque, going back a long time ago, 108 feet wide. The Imam Mosque in Isfahan, 108 feet high. The Iwan facing the Qibla, and in the Raudat Tahira, 108 feet high dome. King Khalid Airport, Saudi Arabia, 33 arches along the Royal Pavilion leading to a dome of 108 feet wide. You also find it in the Mayan Mesoamerican world, where all these 108, 216 as well. When it comes to navigation, and just call it the military-industrial complex as well, they love these numbers. They just, it's built into it. So, again, just countless examples. These are just ones that I didn't need to make. The ancient world, the Royal Stoa, 108 feet high. Parthenon, the Portico, 108 feet. Baths of Caracalla, the largest obelisk in Aksum in Ethiopia, now fallen, 108 feet high. Cathedrals, Christian statue, 108 feet, just all over the joint. All, they're very older and as well as new ones. You just see it repeated constantly and constantly. Again, these were not standardized, measured. These are bespoke churches and statues. These were built to designs, not to off-the-shelf products. This cannot be used as an excuse to say, well, it's just standardization. No, and that it's not random. These are designed that even the books and the traditions on architecture have to do with using important numbers, important proportions in these sites. And it's one thing of the older superstitious time, let's call it, but whether it's even the modern architecture, buildings of grand public importance, major museums, parliament buildings, this type of stuff, still cathedrals, temples, always include this, always. It's part of this ongoing tradition. Historically speaking, 108 in systems of weights and measure, going again back to ancient times, weights and measure. It's still with us now. In geometry, it's just like one of these really, really key numbers. New Jerusalem, Ark of Utnapishtim, New Jerusalem has described in the King James version, especially that just after Queen Elizabeth I, and this new system of allegedly new systems of the modern English so-called foot and mile. Everywhere it's embedded. It's all over the place. Just so important in geometry. It's a lovely number, tuning. So 108 really, really is a thing. It's from the east, like literally, really, really important. It stands amongst of the important numbers. It stands high above these, and it's just really built into everything, and points again to not just a ceremonial, but a deeper set of knowledge, because 108 again in math and geometry and the systems just comes back in together, and they keep doing it. Why in India and these other places would they be using 108 feet? Well, because the foot is much older than what we think. It's an old wives' tale to say it's based on, it's just unbelievable how some the excuses for this are actually the crazy myths, because they're just built on assumptions that the measurable, tangible, recorded history of the development of weights and measures, the architecture connected to it. So you can't separate those from the older religions as well yet, because it's very uncomfortable for some people, because it makes them feel comfortable to believe everything is random, and the older people were all stupid. They couldn't do things. We're so smart now because we got computers that think for us. We're smart because a computer thinks for us, and we can just Google Wikipedia and it tells us what to think. There is something very deep going back to the ancient past, and this is a universal language. Cannot be lost in translation. This is the power of it. This is one of the reasons such things were built into these important structures, and why they resonate with us still today, whether you like it or not. Have a good one.